El día de hoy nos encontramos con Sabina Vajrača, la directora de cine nacida en Bosnia, la cual nos concedió una entrevista sobre su nueva película llamada Sevap, Mitzvah, el cual es un filme que habla sobre una historia real que retrata cómo familias bosnias musulmanas y también judías se salvan la vida mutuamente. Además de hablarnos sobre su proyecto audiovisual, también nos platicó sobre su vida y cómo creó el filme, por lo que no te puedes perder esta entrevista con Alonso Bañuelas.
Hi, my name is Sabina Vajrača. I'm a writer, director, and producer of a short film, Sevap, Mitzvah. So I grew up in a Bosnian Muslim family in a small town in northern Bosnia. And I grew up in a community that had all different ethnicities and religious groups coexisting and living together and marrying each other. And there was never any hatred that I ever experienced being a member of a specific group. And it was something that I carry into my life in America, where there is much more segregation and also a lot of narrative about different groups not liking one another. And it's something that has always bothered me about living in this country, and specifically in terms of Muslims and Jews. There's always this sort of a half joke that people say when I go to parties with my Jewish friends and they say, "Oh, you're Muslim and they're Jewish, how come you're friends?" And I find that, of course, I always laugh whenever they say that and make some sort of a joke about it. But really, it bothers me that that's even an issue, that's something that people consider worth bringing up, because I was raised to believe that people are only divided by one thing, and that is whether or not they're good. And what I mean by that is whether or not what they have in their heart is love, first and foremost, or if they're bad, which is if they have fear and greed and hatred in their heart. And that is really the only way that I differentiate people. It's something that my parents really instilled in me, and growing up in a country that was so interconnected across all the different lines really helped solidify that. So I was very interested in telling a story from my perspective, hoping that perhaps by doing so I could shift some biases that I was coming across. And so I sat down to write the script, and I really wanted to find a true story about Muslims and Jews being friends and loving one another. And so I started doing research in 2021 about Muslims who saved Jews in World War II, because that was a pretty common thing in Bosnia at the time. And I came across the story of Sabina Vajrača and Rivka Kabiljo by finding that black and white photo that you see at the end of the film. And I just found it really fascinating when I read a caption that said, you know, Sabina Vajrača is walking down the street in Sarajevo in 1941, hiding Rivka Kabiljo's Star of David underneath her burqa. And I started digging up more information about it. And when I found out the entire story, I just thought that had to be made into a movie, because I think that we are all so hungry for stories like that nowadays. Okay, what is the most challenging aspect? I think the most challenging aspect of adapting a true story into a fictional narrative form is staying true to the real people. You know, you never want to go too far and make up characters and that weren't really like that. And it's something that I learned while I was making. So my first film, Back to Bosnia, was a documentary, and that was a challenging thing for me, because all these people that I met along the way would tell me their life stories, and they were heartbreaking and incredible. And in the end, I could only put a little tidbit of that in a finished film. And that really affected me, especially when I started making this film and when I started writing this story. And I was very aware of making sure that that I represent these characters in the most authentic way possible, while still dramatizing a lot of the events for the sake of actually making a narrative film. And I would say that was probably the biggest challenge I had with this particular project because there was so much more of the story that I couldn't include. It is my hope to include it in a feature version of this film, which is what I'm working on now. Muslims and Jews. To me, this film, even though it is specifically about these two particular groups of people and in these two particular times in history, in World War II and the Bosnian War, it is not necessarily a film that is that specific. I was trying to really tell a story about love and friendship that exists across any sort of labels and religious groups that we are grouped into. And in that way, I really hope that it inspires people to see the person on the other side of the aisle, let's put it that way, in a more human way. You know, I think that we all, underneath all the different labels, we're all just human. And if we can start seeing each other in that light instead of, you know, a person of a different religious or ethnic group or sexual orientation or race or any of those things, if we can really start looking at the core of who we are, at the humanity we all share, I really hope that this film inspires us to do that so that we can all start to find more love in our hearts and overcome the fear and the biases and the stories that we were told about the other. Then I feel like this film has really nailed home what it is that I was trying to say with it. Collaboration. So I am from northern Bosnia. I'm from a small town in northern Bosnia, and I immigrated to the US as a war refugee when I was still a kid. So my entire film education, in any case, was in the United States, and all the collaborators I've ever made movies with were all based in the United States. But when I received a grant to make this film from a nonprofit organization called Claims Conference, based out of New York. And I wanted to spend all that money in Bosnia. That was very important to me, to sort of pay it back to the country I come from, as well as, you know, to spend the money in a city and with the people that this story, that where it comes from. You know, I just felt it was important to me. I felt it was more authentic than if I was to make it in America, or even if I brought a lot of my collaborators from here to Bosnia. So that was very challenging because I didn't really know anyone in Sarajevo, and especially no one in the film business. And I had to very quickly find people that I can trust and that wanted to work with me. So I talked to a lot of producers, and in the end, I really connected the most with Kerim Mašević, who is a young up-and-coming producer in Bosnia, in Sarajevo. And that really appealed to me. He was hungry. He saw the story in the same way that I did. He was motivated by the story rather than any other thing, and became a true collaborator throughout the entire process. And because he's local, then he knew a lot of people he could bring to the table, including our production designer, Adisa Vatraš, who created the costumes and the sets and the entire world that you see on screen, and I think made an incredible job. As well as Alena Lilovic, who was our cinematographer, then I brought on Merima Ključa, who did our music. And I think between the entire creative team, we worked really hard to bring the life that was written in a script on screen, whether it was through cinematography, production design, costumes, and music. Definitely was something that Merima, who is an expert in Sephardic Jewish music, really brought to the table at the last minute and elevated the entire project to another level. Sevap, mitzvah. So Sevap is a Bosnian word that I'm told we inherited from Turks or from Arabic, but I know it as a Bosnian word. And it means doing good for the sake of the world at large, not for any individual gain. And I don't know that there is a exact word like that in English. People have translated this as the good deed. I think that works to a certain degree, but it is really a word that means you do something out of the goodness of your heart. You do not expect any reciprocity. You do not expect any pat on the back. It's doing kindness behind closed doors, but if kindness was on a more elevated level. And when I was writing the script, I was talking to my Jewish friends in the United States, and they said the word mitzvah means the same thing. And because this is a film that bridges these two cultures, I decided to include both of those in the title of the film. So it's Sevap, Mitzvah. Winning awards. Yes, I'm incredibly grateful for the awards that this film has won so far. It means that it's landing with the audiences that are watching it, that people are responding to its underlying message, the message of goodness and kindness and humanity. And in that regard, the Humanitas Prize that the script won is, not to name the favorites, but it's the one that really meant the world to me, because those are the kind of stories that I aim to tell as an artist, as a filmmaker, and being recognized by such an incredible institution at this point in my career was absolutely remarkable. And of course, I really love the accolades, but to me, the biggest and the most important thing is that it lands with the audiences. I make my art for the audience, not for my own ego gratification. Even though, we all know directors have giant egos, and I'm not going to pretend that mine isn't. But I do make films because I have something to say beyond just entertainment. And when the audiences respond to it, and when they hear the message that I'm trying to say, and come to me after the screening or email me afterwards and say how much it impacted them, in a way that means much more to me than any accolades. But please don't tell the Academy Awards board, because getting an Oscar would be incredible. What else have I not answered? About the future. So yes, I am hoping to turn this into a feature film. That is what I'm working on currently. I'm writing that script and talking to some producers about it. I also have a couple of other feature films that I've been pushing along for the last handful of years, and hoping that perhaps with the momentum of this particular project, those will finally be put in front of the people who can greenlight them. So keep your fingers crossed. Thank you very much.